Hi, everybody. Mitch Tanenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to talk about for a minute the recent action in Montana banning TikTok. So, it's fair to say, I think, that TikTok is not going to get a whole lot of Christmas cards from American regulators and legislators this year. I think that's a given. And many states have banned TikTok on state-owned devices and also on federal government-owned devices, which is well within their purview. If they own the device, they can control what goes on the device. The problem happens, and let me share my screen here. When the government bans TikTok, now right now, what Montana, and this is the first state to do this, the governor signed a bill to protect Montana's personal and private data from the Chinese Communist Party. And I think that that's probably a fair statement, except it's not doing that. At this point, what they're saying is that what they would like to have happen, and I say like because I don't think this is going to happen, but as of January 1st of next year, they would like the Apple Store and the Google Android Store to remove the TikTok app in the state of Montana, which means that, of course, that someone could use a VPN and pretend that they're in some other state, and all of a sudden that doesn't have any benefit at that point. Also, expect there to be a land rush between now and January 1st of people who maybe were thinking about installing the app, but really weren't sure about it. And well, now they absolutely will. It says that the law provides a potential fine of $10,000 per day, including for the app stores found to host the social media application. Except at least right now, the app stores don't have a mechanism. First of all, they don't really know where people are located. They know potentially where the ISP is connecting to the internet, but for example, I'm in Colorado, and many times I see my connection showing up as being in Washington State, for example. That's where CenturyLink terminated my connection, and so just because I'm here in Colorado doesn't mean that it's going to show up that way. There's certainly a question about whether the government has any legal right. I do believe that there will be lawsuits filed, and there already have been lawsuits filed. Talk about that in a second, saying that this infringes on the First American right to free expression, and for those folks who have monetized TikTok to earn a living. So that's an interesting issue. I mean, clearly, TikTok being owned by the Chinese company ByteDance, and they clearly have more of a connection to the Chinese Communist Party and Chinese government than they really want to admit. But the question becomes, is this law unconstitutional? I assume that what will happen is that there will be a stay issued. This will go fight, for who knows, 5 years maybe. It may not be a relevant issue 5 years now, who knows. But the question becomes, well, if you're going to do that, well, what about all of the Russian-owned social media companies like Telegram, for example? So clearly they're singling out ByteDance here, which seems like that's an abuse of government power. So if I can, let's see if I'm successful here. Share something else, close this. So TikTok has already filed a lawsuit. It's one of several lawsuits that have been filed. And I anticipate there will be more, and eventually these lawsuits will likely be consolidated. So we'll see that. But I think that there's a challenge now. That what the government has said, what the state of Montana has said, is that they don't plan to go after individual users. And I think that's just being pragmatic on their part, because if you have 100,000 people who are using the app, um, you know, you're not going to go file a lawsuit against 100,000 people. And if you go off and file a lawsuit against 5 people, then that's selective enforcement, and that probably, from a political standpoint, doesn't look good to the government, and B, you know, will probably create a grounds for appeal. The other question becomes, given that clearly TikTok, Apple, and Google are multinational companies, does this violate the dormant commerce clause of the Constitution that prohibits states from regulating or passing laws that affect interstate commerce? That, according to the Constitution, is the purview of the federal government. And the former president tried to ban TikTok. It didn't really work. The courts didn't think that he had a legitimate reason to do that. And as long as people continue to use the application and they don't plan to go off and arrest people for using TikTok, I think that this is pretty much a meaningless law. So we shall see what happens. I think the only potential effective way to deal with this is a federal law, but even if there's a federal law, it's still going to wind up in court and be tied up there for years and years and years. So I appreciate that they're trying to do something. I tend to agree that there is a legitimate issue here with the Chinese Communist Party. But remember, all it takes is a credit card, and not one with a terribly big credit limit, to go buy all this data that they are vacuuming up now. And if they really wanted to, and they didn't want to pay for it, they could go off and just steal it, hack into various places and steal the data. So I don't think you're going to stop the Chinese from getting the data they want. You might make it a little bit more cumbersome, a little harder, but I don't think you're going to effectively stop them from doing this. So this is really a political move on the part of the governor there. And clearly Montana is a red leaning state. So they want to make brownie points with their base. And I understand that, but they're going to go spend a lot of money on litigation. And maybe that's okay with people in Montana. The government, spends millions and millions of dollars litigating a lawsuit that I think, ultimately will lose. But that's between the governor and the citizens of Montana. So stay tuned. We'll see. But it'll be years before we get to any kind of a definitive resolution on this. If you have questions, feel free to reach us. Until next time, stay safe.
Turnkey Cybersecurity and Privacy Solutions offers the complete cybersecurity program for small to medium-sized